seconds to play, and Bruce Tate doesn't know that. The game's going to end on this play. He fires downfield. Goes to the end zone. Lobs it to the far corner. Offset eye. Ross throws a block for Sargent. He's going to crawl over that goal line. Burrows in for a touchdown.
Hey, Hawkeye fans, welcome back into an Iowa football fan perspective preview. This now in week 3 as our Hawks are 1-1 after a loss to Iowa State last week. I think we all know we're not quite over that. I can certainly say that it's Tuesday, and I'm still not feeling 100% just after that disappointment. And I haven't got to talk about it much. We're not going to talk about it a ton here because it's just going to piss me off if we're being completely honest. And so we deal with a 1-1 Hawkeye team that comes into Kinnick Stadium for the 3rd straight game with their second shot at a G5 opponent, this one being the Troy Trojans of the Sun Belt. Now, most of these is what we'll do is we'll break down the other teams so you kind of know what to expect out of this football team that Iowa's playing every week. This one, I'm not going to go forever on. I do think that there are things to know with Troy, but I think it's a team really trying to find its identity still to this day. And it's only week 3. They've played 2 games, and they haven't been the best results for a Troy program that's been very good for the last 10 years. So we're going to talk about all of that. We'll talk about what Iowa needs to do to get better and what they can improve on throughout the weeks, and maybe our outlook on the season now that we are in the situation that we're in. Again, thank you to everybody who tunes into these each week. It's a ton of fun to kind of go through everything like that. I wish it was in a 2-0 mood, but it's a ton of fun. If you haven't got a chance to actually watch our weekly college football show on YouTube, X, Facebook, please do that. We do it every week. It's a live show. You can see live, or you can catch it on the podcast on anywhere you get those, or watch the rerun on YouTube. Tons of stuff that we put out over there. All our game previews for the week. We do some picks for the ATS board. We have a ton of fun just talking the sport in general. Like we do G5 all the way to the big Power 4 schools. So ton of fun. Check that out if you have not. Again, weekly show with Sunday. Sometimes we do a recap episode. Just kind of tell everything that went on throughout the weekend and things you need to pay attention to. Also, thank you to our friends over at No Rivals. As you can see, I'm wearing a hat right now. No Rivals logo on the side, Hawkeyes on the front, Go Hawks scripted on the side. It's super sharp. If you use the code PTFS at checkout, you get some free shipping. They've got loads of teams. Even if you're watching this, you're probably a Hawkeye fan, so they have plenty of Hawkeye hats to choose from. They also have other schools if you're interested in just color scheme, or if you have a friend that goes to that school, it's a great gift. As I know, everybody likes a good hat, and these are some of the best in the industry. Again, shopnorivals.com, code PTFS gets you free shipping. Let's jump into it, should we? So, Troy comes into this game 0-2, a week 1 loss against Nevada, which is not a team that Nevada's looked better than they have in the past. They are better than we thought they were going to be into the season, but it's not a team a Troy program should really lose to. They lose that one close in week 1. They then played Memphis, who I think is going to have a real shot at being the G5 rep in the 12-team playoff. Then lose that one. That was my best bet of the week, was actually Memphis minus the 18. I think Memphis won by 20, 21. Was just handling that whole game and slowed down the second half. Was just handling a Troy team that, again, has not really found its identity and kind of what they are. Losing John Summerall to Tulane over the offseason really hurt this program, because that was a guy who really put this program in a good spot. They had a real identity with Kamani Vidal in the backfield. They had a really good defense. They were Sun Belt champs a couple times. Like, this is a really good program. Now they kind of sit in a spot where they just don't have the same identity. The program's kind of picked over the way the portal works. There's not any star power there that's really scary to many people throughout the country. And that's just kind of the situation that Troy finds itself in. It's a really proud program, but it's not the Troy program we've seen. New head coach here, Gerard Parker. He comes in from Notre Dame. He was the offensive coordinator at Notre Dame for a little while. He comes in, and it's a Troy team that still has been able to score a little bit of points, but where they've really struggled is on the defensive side of the football. I mean, they really are struggling to stop the run, which plays right into Iowa's hand. Obviously, we saw what happens when we get a little too conservative and get a little too comfortable a week ago. And Troy's going to give you the opportunity to just run the football and play good, solid offensive line play. Make sure you don't fumble, hit open passes, things like that. But there are things that we really need to pay attention to on this Troy team. Defensively, I don't think they possess much of a scare, but it is get right again. Like, we can't have second half collapses like we did last week. So let's talk about Troy on the offensive side of things. They played a couple quarterbacks at this point. I'm looking over here at my notes. Got a couple screens set up, so I'm not avoiding anything or eye contact or being weird. Goose Crowder started game one, went out with an injury. So what they did is they brought in another guy who's played in that Memphis game. Actually, I'm trying to remember the name off the top of my head. Where did he go? I mean, this is brutal. Matthew Caldwell. Sorry. He's been around the block a little bit. Jacksonville State, he was at for a little bit. He was also at Gardner-Webb. Now he's at Troy. So they've had a 2-quarterback system kind of rolling, splitting reps. And then after the injury, Caldwell's taking the snaps in the Memphis game. And so I'm going to assume we'll see Caldwell. We might see them both. But from what I'm understanding, we'll see Matthew Caldwell, a guy that wasn't bad through the year. I mean, 11-19 for 113. So we're not pushing the ball downfield vertically very much with this offense. It's very much still predicated on the run. But that's not a great Memphis defense they went up against, and he struggled to get vertical. It's going to be interesting to see if he can do that this weekend in Iowa City. I know that's one thing that we really need to pay attention to, is just get – apparently we got exposed last week, and we forgot that we can't just give up 25, 30-yard bombs in the middle of that secondary. So that's something to pay attention to there. On the skill position side on the outside, they got 2 top targets, Devontae Ross and Peyton Higgins. Both aren't massive dudes, 5'11", listed right around about that 175-ish pound mark. So they're not big dudes. I mean, these are guys who are solid G5 receivers. They're not going to blow you away, and they're not going to go up and win a ton of 50-50 balls at that kind of size. So they're going to have to find the ways to get these guys open and in space, and that's just purely scheme. And Troy hasn't found that identity quite yet in what they want to do. If you look at kind of what they've done in the last couple of games, they put up 28 on in a losing effort at Nevada, and then only put up, I believe, like 13 or 14 at Memphis. So it's not a team that's very high flying and doesn't really get up and down the field a ton. But when you look at everything, they still want to run the ball. And so if it's a clock control, ugly game, they can keep themselves in things, especially if Iowa finds a way to not complete passes over the middle, check downs, guys that are open already, and the running game sputters like it did last week. Damian Taylor is going to be the guy getting most of the carries here. 18 carries for 136 and 3 halves of football. He did get kicked out of the first game with a targeting penalty. The running back did. I know. Go watch the tape. It's just one of those interesting things where it just happens every once in a while, I guess. But he's not a bad back. He's a guy that's pretty quality and not one that you want to just overlook for sure. So looking at the defensive side of things, let's jump there. 120th in the FBS. They currently rank in rush defense. That's not great. I believe over 200 yards a game they're giving up on the ground. And it's a recipe for Kirk Ferentz in this offense to just be like Caleb Johnson, Kamari Moulton, LaShawn Williams. Like, just give the football to the running backs and let them make plays, because I feel like when they're in a rhythm, we're really good, and especially when Caleb's feeling good. But the offensive line, if they're not feeling good and we're getting hit a yard deep, or, there's no yards after first contact because we're getting hit a yard deep or right at the line of scrimmage, things become troublesome. So that's something to pay attention to there. Also, Nevada, not a great offense, but ran for 214 on them. Memphis can run the football. They can also throw it. Hennigan and company are very good offense. The Tigers had 7.3 yards a carry, 211 on 29 carries. I mean, just gashing this football team. So they're not great up front. They're not great on the defensive side of things. It'll be interesting to see what approach Ferentz takes to this one. Now, do you really believe that this team is just going to get better in 1 week? Talking about Troy here going into Iowa and playing a Big Ten team on the road. This is the first power school they've played on the season, and get that much better. I don't. And that worries me a little bit, just because it's like, we need to get better. This offense needs to get better. We need to get more comfortable in it. We're not doing that right now, right? We are not doing that right now. A lot of what we're doing right now is simply, it feels like we are comfortable with where we are and trying not to lose in a lot of situations. I know Ferentz has done that a time or two. I've had that conversation a time or two on this fan perspective, and it's just not something I'm really interested in dealing with anymore. So I want the offense to get better. I want it to open up a little bit. I want to see guys make plays. I want to see Cade under pressure making plays. I want to see Cade making check downs and the right reads. I want to see him throwing the correct ball on a wheel route instead of just putting it on a line, assuming it's open. There are things that I really think need to be worked out. So let's talk about Iowa for a little bit. Defensively, I think somebody discovered something, or we just had too many breakdowns in coverage. Like either Iowa State started scheming things open and seeing something that they could attack and did, or we are just making too many mistakes. And that's not something that can happen. Now, is this week it kills us? No, but it did last week and it might down the road. So it's something I would like to see get better. The pressure on the quarterback was definitely better throughout the game as well, especially early in the game. That defensive front is better than we think, especially the pass rush. I think the defensive line, when it comes to defending the run, is fine. For me, it's getting to the quarterback, and we've gotten much better about that in the last 2 weeks, and I'm happy with that. I think we all can say that. Linebacking's been good. It's been the safety position with Wampa and Entringer and guys like that, like Castro getting burnt late, just things that don't happen and can't happen, rear in their head. And to be fair with you, like, I hope it's just one-offs and it's just one of those halves that we just everything kind of fell apart, because it felt like perfect storm after we scored that touchdown to go up 19-7. It felt like perfect storm. Everything else went the other way, and we just couldn't handle the football and we couldn't defend it. So something we need to work on offensively. I've talked about Cade a little bit. We just can't. As soon as they sell out to stop the run and we decide to run the ball, now we know for sure we cannot miss open balls, and we have to find guys open and make plays, and he just didn't do that for us. Will we see Sullivan this week? I'm going to doubt it. I don't think either quarterback was made available to the media this week. Like, maybe we do, but like going off of Kirk and what he's done in years past, I don't think we see another guy. I think we see Cade for 4 quarters unless we're up 30, like we did in week 1, and then Sullivan gets a drive or two and we call it a day. I think that's the assumption on how everything's going to be. I think the receivers have gotten better again, but they're not, none of them are guys that are just going to route themselves open. They're not going to go get 50-50 balls. A lot of these guys aren't ones that make a ton of plays by themselves. If you get them in space and put the ball on them, maybe they'll get you 15-20, but they're not guys that are going to be home run threats, and definitely not ones that are going to make a 8-yard reception, a 35-yard reception. That's just the nature of the beast. Like, the talent is not there for that kind of thing. We know it's there in the running back room. We know it's there in the tight end room. How do we not get the football to the tight ends last week? I'm not sure. The matchup was there. It felt like everything was in place for those guys to have a big day and just didn't. That's got to change. We've got to find ways to get the tight ends and Lachey and Estringa back into the offense. There's ways we can do so, and I am confident in Tim Lesser at OC. So hoping that all gets better. But honestly, like, if we're looking at this game from afar, this is a game Iowa should win. I believe they're 20-point favorites. I think Iowa comes out of here with like 27-10 is my guess on this. So I'll go 27-10, no cover. Maybe Iowa sits on a little bit, just works on the run game a ton, and we roll into Big Ten play not too long after, and we really hope things gotten better and the quarterback plays better. But right now, I think it's a reset of expectations and understand where we are as a program and as a team on this season, and things have got to get right before we really have those higher expectations throughout the year. Again, thank you for joining in. I know this was a little bit of a shorter one, but I do think there's more things to worry about with Iowa this week than it is the Troy Trojans. So thank you for joining in. I appreciate all of you. Again, check us out weekly, actually. Live show. We do reaction stuff on Sunday. We do a weekly preview show from the week coming up. It's a ton of fun. Love you guys tuning in. Thank you for everything you guys do. Also, go Hawks.